Your website is broken, and the problem is you might not even know it. Now, my name's Ashley. I'm the event director of Marketing Showcase. We run events all across the country which help thousands of marketeers become their best selves. Now, it might sound cringy, but you're going to find out in the next 10 minutes or so areas in which you perhaps didn't even realize your website was leaking leads and losing out on those valuable new opportunities that I'm sure you're tasked with finding. We were blessed at Villa Park to have Will Roberts, who I define as my website master, run us through 5 behavioural changes your customers are facing and going through on your website. And if you don't know about these things, it's not your fault. You just simply don't know how to fix them. So sit back and listen to Will, and he'll give you the tools and knowledge you need to fix those holes. If you want to see Will and any of our other speakers at one of our live events, I invite you to register for your local marketing showcase, and we look forward to seeing you soon. Enjoy.
So here we go, right? Most websites, they're not failing because of bad design or lack of effort or maybe poor technology. Actually, they're struggling because user behavior has changed and most websites have just not kept up with that change. Now, of course, AI is a big part of that. It has changed how we search, how we find information, what we expect from using these kind of systems. And ultimately, what that means is what worked on your website 12, 18 months ago might not actually work nowadays. So in this session, I'm going to show you 5 insights and 5 gaps, really, where ultimately user behavior has changed and your website might not have actually kept up. So today, these are going to be 5 shifts that I share with you, and they're areas where we feel user expectations have accelerated, but ultimately websites have just not kept up at the same pace. First shift we're seeing is around clarity and the speed of understanding, okay? So users don't explore websites the same as they used to. If you cast your mind back a few years ago, users would browse around a website, click around on average 3, 4, 5 pages to find the information that they're looking for. They might give you 30 seconds to a minute and a half of their time to do that. That is just not the case anymore. People land on your website and they expect to understand what it is that you do, what you stand for, and the outcome for them or the next step for them within seconds. So we see this time and time again from often the audits that we undertake, that you're making people think when they land on your website. They've got to work out what it is that you do and the benefit for them. And actually when they stop and have to work that out for themselves, what does that mean? They leave the site. They're not going to hang around long enough for that. Often this is caused by maybe your messaging not being clear about what it is that you provide, or maybe the call to actions aren't clear, or maybe you just go on about services rather than the benefits to your clients. And the key information is often buried within navigation upon navigation or 3, 4, 5 clicks away from them. And the result of this is people don't stick around long enough to actually convert. Now, this is not just a user experience issue, this has a commercial impact on your business. Because if the users don't get it within a few seconds, they're going to leave. They've got to be able to digest what it is that you do and the benefits of using your service within seconds. And ultimately, this leads to people landing on your site, not getting it and leaving, which is a waste of your ad spend, is driving lower engagement and fewer inquiries into the business. So you're not losing potentially bad traffic, you're actually losing good traffic. This could be traffic that have landed on your site with good intention, but they're just not converting. So what can we do about this? Well, we've got to fix the first 10 seconds. When someone lands on your website, within 10 seconds, they need to understand what it is that you do, who you do it for, and why that matters. You need to think about what are the outcomes or the benefits to your users and shy away from internal language and terminology. Ultimately, try and remove the friction and allow people to find information more easily. Secondly, you can also help users find the information that they're looking for. Now, of course, AI starts to play a role here because people are used to finding information by natural language. They might go to ChatGPT and they might have a conversation with that LLM and find the information they're looking for. And it's now that you can bring that experience through to your site as well. So by implementing an AI-driven search, you can allow people to find content on your website far easier and through more conversational language rather than the traditional approach of just keywords. So again, a big thing to reduce that friction and get people to the information that they're looking for much more quickly. Now, we always say relevance beats a redesign. One of the biggest misconceptions we see is that improving performance of a website just requires a full rebuild. Now, don't get me wrong, it might, but actually in a lot of instances, it doesn't require a full rebuild. It requires a rethink on how you tailor the experience of the site for each individual user. Biggest gains often come from making content more relevant. So think about who's landing on your site and how we can increase the relevance of that content. So some actions off the back of this, what could we do? Well, let's start with some light personalization, okay? So you don't need to jump straight into really complex AI setups, okay? That is a future goal, okay? Let's start with baby steps. So we know that they've come from an email marketing campaign which talked about a specific problem or service or solution. Well, let's make sure they go to a landing page and let's tailor the content on that landing page to what we know about that user. Because after all, they're probably in our CRM and we know the company they're from, their interests and so on. Or we know they've come from a PPC campaign, they've searched a particular keyword, they've come through. Again, let's tailor the messaging to make sure that it's as relevant as it can be. The other thing you can do is start to adjust your call to actions. If we know they've landed on your site for the first time, why are we throwing straight under their nose, buy now, buy now, buy now? It's just too early, too soon, okay? So we need to think about the journey. Have they landed on our site before? Do we know them? Do we not know them? And adjust accordingly. And these changes have a really big impact. Secondly, of course, AI makes this scalable, okay? So this is where really AI starts to become really powerful for your website because it allows you to segment users in real time, adapt content dynamically, and continuously improve based on user behavior. So long gone are the days where you have to do this manually. AI could be adjusting the content on your site in real time based on what we know about that user. And as they browse through your site and we build up more data about their interests, it gets better and better. Okay, the third shift is around effort, okay? So users today have very little tolerance to friction, okay? So if something feels slow, confusing, or difficult, they're not going to push through that barrier. Ultimately, they just leave, okay? So there's a clear behavior shift here, where before they might hang around and they might try and find the information, but actually now, 2026, they're not going to do that, okay? Now, AI tools have trained users ultimately to expect more immediate responses. So we want information at our fingertips, we want it fast, and we don't want to work things out. Now, obviously, this is a generalization, but this is what the data is saying. So this now becomes the benchmark for your website experience, not your competitors. When someone lands on your website, they're not saying, oh, do you know what, the competitor's website was just much better. They're comparing you to what they use day in, day out. So searching on Amazon, finding that film on Netflix, that's their expectation level, not your competitor's website. So this has a commercial impact once again, because ultimately we're losing conversions at the bottom of the funnel because there's this friction in place. Not because users aren't necessarily interested in what you have to offer or what you want to talk about, but actually because the journey just slows them down. They just can't find it quick enough. So we regularly see in some of our audits, long and confusing forms, unclear next steps, and too many clicks to what you want to view or find out more about. And ultimately, this just creates more and more friction and more drop-offs. Now, with regards to forms, there are ways to kind of improve the performance there. Let me just quickly show you this video. Hopefully it loads. So this is actually integrating with a platform called Apollo. It allows you to integrate into your site, and rather than have a traditional form like this, it switches the form around, so you ask for email address first. Once they enter an email address, more often than not, that is found in the Apollo database, and the rest of the information is then populated automatically. So from the user's perspective, they come onto your site, they've made the decision to inquire, and they just go, I'll pop my email address in. The rest of the information populates, name, company, so on, and then the inquiry is made. We've removed the friction, and guess what? More conversions at the bottom of the funnel. First up, focus on the moments that matter most. So think about your inquiry form, maybe some key landing pages, conversion journeys, the documents they might download, the events they might sign up for. think about these key action points on your website and start to address those one by one. It might be looking at how the forms can be more seamless, like the example I've shown. It could be a range of other things, but they would be the key things to start with. And ask yourself some questions. How many steps does it take to find this information and complete? How many decisions does the user need to make to actually achieve the end result? And where could they get stuck? Now, these are just questions to get you thinking internally, but of course you could be using tools like Clarity, Hotjar, and others to gather this data for you. Second up, of course, you can use AI to remove some of this friction. So what it can do is maybe start to throw a chatbot up when people are struggling on a page. So it can detect people have hesitated, and then it could throw that up in a modal. You could throw a different prompt up. So when we detect hesitation or rage clicks, as they're sometimes called, then we can do something about that. Or we could do guided journeys. Actually say to someone, are you looking for this? And we'll take you there. You can be proactive in getting users to the right information. So this is not about adding more. This is actually about just making the steps easier for them to achieve. Now, the fourth shift is around insight. Most marketing teams that we talk to have more data at their fingertips than ever, but far less clarity on actually what's working and not working on their website. So tools like Google Analytics and Hotjar, Clarity, and lots of all of these other wonderful tools are giving us so much data for us to consume, but they often don't tell us the full picture. So in your marketing reports, you might be sharing with the board or a senior leadership team some of the key marketing stats, but actually that's just relaying what these platforms are telling you, right? It's just actually saying, this is what we've achieved with little insight into what the data is actually saying. So you could see high bounce rates, drop off on key pages, or low conversion rates, and all of that can be reported back to the business, but actually what they're interested in is, why is this happening and what can we do about it? It's the insight bit that we often miss. So decisions then get based on opinion, or who's got the loudest voice in the room, or who's the decision maker, and how's that going to be pushed through. And the decisions aren't made on data, they're made on opinion or preference. And that's the last thing that you want to be doing. Now, again, this has a commercial impact, because when you're making decisions without using the data and the insight, you're actually going to fix the wrong things. You're going to be looking at probably issues that are non-issues for the users, and progress is slow because you're fighting against opinions and preferences internally, actually where the data could back you up far quicker.
Okay, I hope you enjoyed that one and you have everything you need now to fix those gaps in your website. If you want to see Will and loads of other content packed into your local Marketing Showcase event, we run free events across the country which help marketeers perform better. Head to our website or search us on Eventbrite and register for your local event, and I'll see you there.